In 2005, a poor teacher came up with a plan to stop sand from swallowing China. His neighbors simply thought he was crazy. While others were leaving the desert, he used the little money he had to release millions of rabbits into it. But they did not die from the heat here. Instead, they began eating the young shoots of desert plants. In fact, that was exactly why he released them. Over the next 30 years, this son of the desert continued to launch a series of strange, large-scale activities. Even more strangely, those efforts helped groundwater rise by about 6.6 feet. Around 4.5 million rabbits helped 400 million native trees turn one-third of the desert green. They even built 196,000 solar panels in the shape of a horse. The United Nations also gave this project a series of rare and prestigious awards. So how did rabbits save the desert, and how could they also improve the local economy? Today we will show you the whole story. What you are seeing is the Kubuqi Desert, the 7th largest desert in China. Located in Inner Mongolia, it is the closest desert to Beijing. But before it became as large as it is today, this place was once farmland, dotted with villages, rivers, and grasslands. Then everything changed. The sand began to move, covering everything in its path. Many times it even created dust storms that traveled as far as Beijing, Tianjin, and Hebei, about 500 miles away. Even our main character, Wang Wenbiao, grew up with sand blowing into his meals, his sleep, and every breath he took. 20 years ago, more than 100,000 farmers and herders here were slowly pushed to the edge of survival. Low rainfall left crops short of water. Poorer grasslands forced people to graze more animals. The more they grazed, the more exposed the land became. The more exposed it became, the faster the sand advanced. Gradually, people left, abandoning this place behind. Even in the 1950s and 1960s, the Chinese government had launched one of the largest anti-desertification campaigns in history. They built windbreak forests, banned livestock grazing, and dug deep wells in the dust, but it did not work. Wang Wenbiao, however, did not think the problem was that simple. He had once been a poor teacher who had to ride his bicycle more than 6 miles through the sand every day to get to class. Some days the wind was so strong that half of his bicycle wheels were buried and sand got into his lungs. He thought this place had to change. The turning point came in 1988 when he took over a salt factory that was close to bankruptcy. To bring salt to market, trucks had to drive around 217 miles, while the train station was only about 40 miles away in a straight line. He spent his own money building a road through the sand, but sandstorms quickly swallowed it. According to People's Daily, around the same time, he also spent 1 billion yuan, about $140 million, to plant desert willow across about 494,000 acres. People called him crazy. Officials said he was dreaming, but he kept going. The most surprising thing came just a few years later, when he suddenly decided to release rabbits there. The desert was hot, dry, and battered by violent sandstorms. Rabbits, on the other hand, were small and fragile, and it seemed as if just a few days of scorching heat would be enough to kill them. So when images of rabbits in the middle of the sand began spreading, many people were shocked. Some laughed at him. Others were angry because they thought animals were being used for experiments. Local businesses chose Rex rabbits. This breed originally came from France and is famous for its short, thick fur that feels soft like velvet. In Rex rabbits, the outer guard hairs are almost the same length as the soft undercoat beneath them, so the fur feels much smoother and more even than that of many ordinary rabbit breeds. A standard Rex rabbit pelt can sell for nearly $30, while the cost of raising one rabbit is only about $2. It is no surprise that China now controls more than 80% of the global Rex rabbit fur market. More importantly, from a biological point of view, rabbits are like ecological engineers. Rex rabbits are well adapted to dry environments. They dig into the soil to look for roots and dry grass, helping improve soil aeration and enriching the land with nutrients through their droppings and undigested seeds. This helps boost the survival rate of planted vegetation to an impressive level, up to 96%. In addition, their high reproduction rate, with each rabbit able to produce up to 40 offspring per year, accelerated the process of land restoration. By 2017, a professional document stated that the rabbit farming area here had about 6 million rabbits being raised. But Wang Wenbiao did not think the whole thing was that complicated. Do you remember how Wang Wenbiao first planted desert willow? At first, local communities were paid to plant trees, but most of the young trees died because no one had a financial reason to keep them alive. So Wang Wenbiao began offering rewards for trees that survived, and the survival rate quickly jumped. This process went through a lot of trial and error. "We had many failures," he said, and that was only one part of it. Planting millions of trees in the desert was not simple. On the open sand, they also had to set up straw checkerboards, plant barriers, and other sand-fixing materials to weaken the wind. Once the wind could no longer glide smoothly across the sand, the movement of the sand began to slow down. After that, drought-resistant plants such as sand willow, licorice, and carragana finally had a chance to take root. Sand willow was chosen because it can survive dry conditions, block wind, hold the soil in place, and create the first green layer on dead sand. In just one decade, more than 300 million willow trees were planted, forming a green wall thousands of miles long. It helped reduce wind speed by 90% and hold back more than 16.5 million tons of sand every year. However, this plant has one very special feature. After about 3 years, it has to be pruned so it can regrow. Otherwise, it gets old, turns woody, and loses its vitality. So what could they do with the huge amount of branches left after every pruning? At first, they were almost nothing more than firewood. Then Zhao and his team discovered that the young tips of sand willow could be used as feed for Rex rabbits, while the harder stems could be used to make paper or plywood. Now you can see the role rabbits played. Beyond that, they also produced meat, fur, pelts, and real income for local people. More than 3,000 households joined or became connected to this model, and thousands of workers found jobs in rabbit farming, feed production, slaughtering, fur and leather processing, and transportation. The average income of rabbit farming households was recorded at about 50,000 to 70,000 yuan per year, or roughly $6,900 to $9,700. Before that, they had only earned about 5,000 to 10,000 yuan per year, or around $700 to $1,400. But he did not stop there. After the early success, Wang Wenbiao hired more than 100 bulldozers and 300 workers, working 18 hours a day to level sand dunes and build windbreak fences, stretching gozers, and 300 workers, working 18 hours a day to level sand for dozens of miles. In just the first 5 years, more than 1,200 square miles of desert land, almost the size of Rhode Island, was transformed into green landscapes. Millions of willow trees grew, millions of rabbits multiplied, and thousands of families returned to the hometowns that had once been swept away by wind and sand. Even before mentioning the ecological impact, these achievements were already extremely impressive. Because of that, more and more tourists began coming here. At the Yincantala tourist area, the number of visitors now reaches about 150,000 per year. During peak season, the area can receive more than 5,000 visitors a day on average. That number shows that the desert is no longer a place people want to stay away from, but has become a destination with real appeal. A bigger example is Shangshuan, also known as the Singing Sand Bay. In 2017 alone, this tourist area welcomed about 860,000 visitors and generated around 180 million yuan in revenue, or roughly $25 million. These are no longer just a few small activities on the sand. This has become a real service industry, capable of creating jobs, income, and business opportunities for local people. Visitors who come here can ride camels across golden sand dunes, drive off-road vehicles over sandy slopes, slide down the dunes from above, take a cable car to view the desert from the sky, or stay in resorts built in the middle of the sea of sand. One of the most famous experiences is the phenomenon of singing sand. When people slide down or walk across certain special dunes, the sand can produce a deep, resonant sound, almost like a long hum rising from beneath the ground. There is another sight that makes visitors look up in amazement: a giant horse lying in the middle of the desert. But this horse is not made of bone, flesh, or stone. It is made from nearly 200,000 solar panels. This is the Junma Solar Power Station, located in the Dalid Solar Power Base in the Kubuki Desert. From above, the panels are arranged in the shape of a galloping horse. In Chinese, Junma also means a fine horse. The project covers about 15 million square feet, or roughly 346 acres. In 2019, it was recognized by Guinness as the world's largest image made from solar panels. This project was not directly led by Wang Wenbiao. It is part of the Dalid photovoltaic project, developed by SPIC Nay Mongol Energy, but it still follows the same development path that Kubuchi has pursued for many years, not only fighting back against the sand, but also turning land that was once seen as dead into a place that can produce energy, jobs, and new value. Each year, the power station can generate about 2 billion kilowatt hours of electricity, enough to meet the annual electricity needs of around 300,000 to 400,000 people. By 2022, the project had produced more than 2.3 billion kilowatt hours of clean electricity, helping save hundreds of thousands of tons of coal and reduce a large amount of CO2 emissions. But as we said, these panels are also part of desert control. The solar panels are raised above the ground, creating shade underneath. This shade makes the sand surface less hot, reduces water evaporation, and gives plants and grasses better conditions to survive. According to project data, the rows of panels can also reduce wind speed near the ground by up to 50%. When the wind becomes weaker, less sand is blown away. When the sand becomes more stable, shrubs, forage grass, and some drought-resistant plants can grow between the rows of panels. By the end of November 2022, the Junma station was recorded as having helped green about 4.1 square miles of desert land, or around 2,644 acres. The mechanism here is very practical. Solar panels generate electricity above, shade helps retain moisture below, plants help stabilize the sand, and local people gain more jobs in operation, planting, and livestock raising. When the grass grows too tall, they can use sheep, geese, or other livestock to graze instead of using mowing machines, reducing maintenance costs and making use of a natural food source. But Kubuchi's greatest achievement is not the solar horse, nor the tourist resorts, nor even the millions of Rex rabbits. The real achievement lies in something slower, harder to see, but far more important. The land began to come back to life. After more than 30 years, according to project publications, the restored and greened area in Kubuchi has reached about 1.6 million acres, or roughly 2,500 square miles. Groundwater, once considered the liquid gold of Kubuchi, has risen by an average of about 5 to 6.6 feet in just 20 years. That means if you drilled a well there today, you could reach water at only about half the depth compared with a generation ago. Its water retention capacity is said to have increased from almost nothing to more than 20 million acre-feet, while carbon absorption has reached about 17 million US tons. Those numbers may sound dry, but if you stand in Kubuchi today, you will understand why they matter. More than 100 native plant species, from silvergrass and desert poplar to desert flowers, have grown back. Yes, Kubuchi is not only greener, but also more diverse. When shrubs return, insects have shelter. When insects appear, birds have food. When the vegetation becomes thicker, small mammals, desert foxes, wild deer, and migratory birds begin to have a reason to come back. Some Chinese sources even describe a sharp increase in the number of wild animals in the restored area compared with the 1990s. Although these figures should be understood as data released by the project side, the real image is still very clear. A place that once had only wind, sand, and abandoned villages now begins to have trees, shade, birds flying overhead, and patches of green breaking through the golden sea of sand. At the very moment when the Rex rabbit story in Kubuchi sounds the smartest, and when people praise rabbits as ecological engineers, we need to look at Australia. It is the same kind of animal, but in one place, it helped create a miracle. In another, it became a disaster. In 1859, a small group of European wild rabbits was brought to Victoria for hunting. At first, it seemed like a harmless act. But in just about 50 years, rabbits had spread across almost the entire Australian continent. Within 70 years, they occupied about 70% of Australia's land area. By around 1950, the rabbit population there had once reached about 600 million. Even today, after more than a century of control efforts, Australia still has at least about 150 million wild rabbits. Rabbits eat young plants, graze grass down to the ground, dig burrows that destabilize the soil, and prevent native plants from regenerating. When vegetation disappears, the land becomes exposed, making it easier for wind and water to carry the soil away. They also compete directly with livestock for food. The Victorian government once compared that just 7 rabbits can consume as much feed as 1 sheep under dry conditions. Every year, rabbits cause more than 200 million Australian dollars in damage to Australian agriculture. In some sensitive areas, a density of fewer than 1 rabbit per hectare, or about 1 rabbit per 2.5 acres, is still enough to stop native plants from recovering. That is why the kabuki story has to be understood correctly. In Australia, rabbits were released into the wild, escaped control, and became an invasive species. In Kabuki, Rex rabbits were not released freely to run across the desert. They were raised in pens, inside a controlled system, with clear feed sources, procedures, and goals. The difference is control. In Australia, rabbits came before the management system. In Kabuki, sand-fixing shrubs and the farming model came before the rabbits. In Australia, rabbits destroyed young plants and made the soil more vulnerable to erosion. In Kabuki, plants had to be planted first to stabilize the sand, and only then were the young branches, after pruning, used as feed for rabbits. In Australia, rabbits escaped the original intention of humans. In Kabuki, rabbits only make sense as long as they remain within the limits of pens and the desert restoration chain. This is the global vision of the story. Every desert in the world is different. The Sahara is not the same as Kabuki. The Middle East is not the same as Inner Mongolia. Australia, North Africa, Central Asia, and South Asia all have their own ecosystems, water sources, and local communities. A solution that succeeds in one place can fail or even cause harm somewhere else if it is copied blindly. The right lesson is not to scale up rabbits. The right lesson is to scale up systems thinking. Restore the land first, choose the right species, control the risks, create livelihoods for local people, and always put ecological limits ahead of economic ambition. Back in China, after a series of successes by Wang and the project, Kabuki began to receive global attention. In 2007, the Kabuki International Desert Forum was established, turning this desert region into a place for international dialogue on desertification control and the green economy. In 2013, Wang Wenbiao and Elian were named Global Dryland Champions by the UNCCD, recognizing their major impact on the lives of local people. That same year, a global desertification control initiative was also launched in Kabuki. In 2014, Kabuki was described as a global demonstration zone for ecological economy. In 2015, Elian continued to receive the UNCCD's Land for Life Award, with recognition for turning degraded land into land with usable value, while also improving the livelihoods of about 100,000 farmers and herders. By 2017, Wang Wenbiao was named a Champion of the Earth by UNEP for his long-term leadership in green industries. After 3 decades, Kabuki is still a desert, but it is no longer a moving sea of sand completely helpless against the wind. Trees can stand there, roads can pass through it, local people have jobs. And the world has begun to see Kabuki not only as a Chinese story, but as a large laboratory for how humans can live with drylands without continuing to destroy them. However, this project is still full of controversy. Some environmentalists argue that the media has greatly exaggerated the role of rabbits, making viewers think that rabbits were the factor that saved the desert. But in reality, rabbits were only one small link in a much larger system. Government planning, massive funding, sand-fixing technology, drought-resistant planting, grazing restrictions, and the participation of local communities. In other words, Kabuki did not come back to life just because of rabbits. Without sand-fixing plants first, without roads, electricity, pens, purchasing systems, and strict control, rabbits could have become a burden rather than a solution. Another concern is that if this model expands too quickly, it could create new ecological pressure. Large-scale livestock farming always comes with waste. Rabbit manure is rich in nutrients, but if it accumulates too much or is not handled properly, it can lead to excess nitrogen, change the soil's pH, pollute groundwater, or increase the risk of eutrophication in small reservoirs. At that point, something once seen as a natural fertilizer could become a new environmental problem. The future of Kabuki is still not a certain answer. The desert has not disappeared. Water remains the biggest limit. If this model expands too quickly, it could create new pressure on the land, water resources, and local ecosystems. But if it is managed properly, Kabuki could become an important suggestion for many dry regions around the world, fighting desertification not only with trees, but with an entire system that includes soil, water, livelihoods, technology, and people. If Kubuchi continues to succeed, it could change the way the world looks at drylands, not as places to be abandoned, but as places that can be carefully healed. But if it fails, it will also be a warning that nature never forgives oversimplification. Do you think Kubuchi is a model worth learning from, or is it too big of an ecological gamble? Leave your comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep following strange but true stories of nature restoration.